another that is connected, that is attached to the very root of life, to the source of divine light. So what is honored? It's not the ego nor the personality of that person, but it's the presence of God in that person. That's very important to know. So the path of self-healing is to get connected once again with the first cause and the first and supreme being of everything. And we do that through affection. So let's take a look on a very powerful symbol that Jesus presented to us in the Gospel, and is the parable of the lost son. The parable of the lost son is an archetype of the Spirit and its path through disconnection and reconnection with God. And this parable starts by telling us that a Lord had two sons, and the younger one asked the father, demanded very strongly the father to give him the part of the estate that he thought he deserved. And after some time, the father divided the property into two and gave him a part that he thought it was his. And then he went out, he left home, and he started to squander all that he had received by living desires. And after a life of pleasures, he lost everything. And suddenly he was alone by himself, without nothing, without food, without money, without friends. And then he felt an enormous feeling of loneliness. And then he went to another country. He got hired into a farm, and he started to feed the pigs. But a strong and a deep famine came to that country, and then he started to dispute with the pigs the food that he gave them. And at that moment, something very important happened in his heart. He remembered that in his father's house, the servants had everything. They worth it. They were treated with dignity. So he said to himself, I have lost the right to be called son. I will come back home, and my father will hire me as a servant. And then he took the path back home, and after some time, he was close to home. His father waited him at the path, and when his father saw him, he came to him and said, and the lost son said, Father, I have lost the right to be called your son, but hire me as one of your servants. And the father said to the servants to give him new sandals, to put the ring of the family on his finger, to give him new clothes, and to kill the fattened calf in order to make the biggest party in that house. So he entered home as a son. At the end of the day, we get to know the second son, the older one. He came back home from the fields he was working, and then he found a party that was not prepared, it was not planned. So he called the servant in order to not feel shy, because he was not prepared for a party, and asked the servant, what is going on? I do not remember that we would have a party today. And the servant said, oh, it's your brother, the younger one that went out and then came back with nothing. He squandered everything that your father gave him, but your father gave him new sandals, new clothes, and asked to kill the fattened calf. And so at that moment, a psychological symptom happened in that older brother that never happens in our family, but only at the gospel. He was very jealous of the younger one, and he said, "No, I'm not going home. I will not enter this house today." And then his father came out to speak with him and asked him, "Why you do not come in?" And he said, "Father, I have always been here with you and have never killed even a goat for me in order to celebrate with my friends. And then this young brother come back home and he has squandered everything, and you killed the fattened calf to make a party for him?" He was pretty jealous. And then the father gave him a very important lesson. The father asked him, "Why do you mind if I'm good? You have always been here with me. All that I have is yours. But this son was lost and was found, was killed and has reborn, resurrect. That's it. Revived. That's it. All of this. So he came back home. So it's fair enough to give him a big party. And then it's the end of the parable. So let's think about the behavior of the second son, because we commonly forget him, and he is as important as the first one, because these two sons are symbols of our behavior in this process. So why the older brother stood at home? He stood because he respected the father? Yes or no?
No.
Yes or no?
Yes.
I don't know.
No, he didn't respect the father. He had an expectation. He thought, if I stay, I would have more than my brother. If I stay, I will receive more. My father will recognize that I'm faithful, and I will receive his recognition. So he had an expectation. He was there not because we respected and he felt that he must stay there, but because he had an expectation. And what is that? This is a paradigm that says to us that in order to receive God's love, in order to receive God's blessing, we have to be faithful to Him. Many religions says that for the man to receive God's blessing, we have to be unfaithful to his laws or to his statements. Otherwise, you wouldn't receive his blessings. And you can tell me, "Oh, Andrei, but that is not the point of view of Spiritism." So let's think about it. In Spiritism, we usually say that deserving is the source of life, isn't it? Yes or no?
Yes.
Yes or no?
Yes.
I'm not hearing. Yes or no?
Yes.
No, definitely no. Deserving is not the source of life. That's what we think. And that's what we teach others. That we must deserve in order to receive. That if we do not deserve, we do not receive. No, deserving is not the source of life. The source of life is God's mercy. The God's love is unconditional. No one of us need to deserve in order to receive. Each and every one of us were born as a manifestation of God's love. When we were created, we were the expression of God's dreams of love. Each and every one of us was created as someone that's worth it. So we do not need to deserve in order to receive. When we think that we need to deserve to receive God's love or God's blessing, we are behaving as the second brother. We are dealing with God. We are challenging God. We are begging God. We don't need to do that. God's love is unconditional, and we have it all the time, 24 hours a day, and that's changed everything. When we really understand that, when we really feel that, we change everything. We don't need to do nothing. So what is the role of deserving in life? When we get in tune with the good will, that is the source of love, we establish a connection that allows us to make the wave collapse. That means we establish a connection that allows us to make those things that are possibilities to become realities. We start to open our mind and our syntony in order to feel, in order to get in touch with that amount of love that God has always prepared for us. So we do not need to deserve. We just need to recognize that we are God's creatures. And as God's creatures, we are unconditionally loved. When we understand that, we surrender in our heart and allow our heart to be guided. When we think that we need to deserve, we keep ourselves as those that are banned from God's love and need to do something in order to deserve, to receive, to deserve, to worth it. No, we worth it because we exist. We do not worth it because we have done something important in life, so God looks to us and say, oh, I will give him something good because he is good. No. We receive love because we are unconditionally loved. That's what the Father teaches the second son. Why do you want a goat to celebrate your personality if you are able to inherit everything that I have? You have always been here with me. All that I have is yours. Why you don't think or you don't feel that you are the owner of everything? That means everything is available to you. Everything is yours. Everything is done. Everything is given. Why you don't think that you deserve? Why you don't think that you can use it, everything that you have? It's the same with us. The same with everything that we have received from God. We have an enormous amount of possibilities because life is a quantic reality. Everything is available. But in order to have something real, we have to collapse the wave. We have to change the reality by changing the perspective of the reality. Because the observer is the one that changes everything. So that's why we need to change our beliefs. When we get to know that we are unconditionally loved, we change our understanding of life. But the first son is the representation of everything. The disconnection, the rebellion, the disconnection, the insufficiency, and the way back home. The reconciliation. So, how does it begin, the disconnection from the lost son from his father? How do we know that he did not respect his father? What he did that is the sign of disrespect?
The first or the second son?
The first.
The first.
He didn't take care of what he inherited. He just threw it away.
No, that was the second.
No.
He wanted to rule himself.
They wanted?
To rule?
Yes,
himself.
he wanted to rule himself. How do you know that?
He wanted to be in control of his life.
He wants to be in control of his life. How do you know that?
Because he asked for this connection.
He asked it? No, he did not ask it. He demanded.
Yeah, he demanded this.
Yeah, it's different. Those who ask are humble. Those who demand are full of pride. A demand is a sense of property. So, does a son have the right to receive inheritance? Yes or no?
Yes.
No. Inheritance is not a right. Inheritance is a gift that the parents give to the son, to the child. When a child looks to the inheritance as a right, lose the right of that thing. And what is this gift? This gift is a movement. It's a spiritual movement. The parent says to the child, here you have the result of my efforts in life. All that I have built, all that I have constructed, so I give now to you. So your life can be a little bit lighter than mine. And as your life is a little bit lighter, you can go even further than I could. It's your duty. So inheritance is a movement. When something passed through the generations in order to produce movements to increase everything. When a child look for the inheritance as a right, lose the right of that. And that's what the first son did. He lost everything. He went out home and he squandered everything. Why did he squander everything? Because he couldn't see the value of that. So gratitude is much more than say thank you. Thank you is just being polite. But gratitude is the sense of value and respect by that thing that we have received. We have gratitude for something when we do the better with that something that we have received. That first son did not do that. He squandered everything. And he's a symbol. A symbol of what? A symbol of this movement of selfishness, of this movement of control. Whenever we try to have control of life, detached from God, so we feel empty. And when we feel empty, the emptiness, the inner emptiness, we try to fulfill our heart by living desires. But the desire is like a fire that disappear very quickly and let all the ashes, yeah, exactly, all the ashes and the destruction through his path. So one day, Jesus da Cruz said, the desire is like the horizon. Whenever we come closer to the horizon, another horizon is formed far away. Because the destiny of the horizon is to be always a horizon and never to be reached. So he said, the purpose of the desire is to be desire and not to be satisfied. Whenever we satisfy a desire, another desire will come on. Because the desire comes from our emptiness. And that's why whenever we reach a goal, we establish a new one. Because we are never satisfied. We are always looking for something bigger. We are always going far away. Because the desire is a fuel, it's not a destiny. When man try to fulfill his heart by living desires, feel a big lack of sense. Because the desire cannot give us a sense of meaning. Many people think that they can themselves or stay in peace by living pleasures as much as they could have. And as much as they live pleasures, more empty they feel. Because desire cannot give us something that is real connected and real sustained. So what happened with the son? He lost everything. He was at the bottom of life. And then he started to feel that he was lonely, he was empty, he was alone. At that moment, when he was eating with the pigs, something very important happened in his heart. What was? What changed his ideas and his life? When he was on the ground,
He realized the gifts that he used to have.
he realized the gift that he used to have. What else?
He surrendered.
He surrendered. Very important one. And why he surrendered?
He didn't have more control.
He didn't have more control. Yeah, but he could stay there, fighting with the pigs, behaving as the pigs. It would be a control, but he gave up this control. Why he gave up the control?
It's repentance. Repentance.
Repentance. Yes. It's one
Humbleness.
step. Humbleness, another step.
Suffering.
But there is something very important that changed his mind.
He wanted to reconnect.
He wanted to reconnect. Why he wanted to reconnect?
So the recognition of his father's love.
The recognition of his father's love. He remembered that at his father's house all the servants were fit. They were treated with dignity. And that's what matters, and that's what changed everything. When he remembered that he worth it and he lost it everything, and that happened due to his own decisions, so he started to make an inner movement in order to come back home. He said, I have lost the right to be called son. What's he saying? It's my fault. I have built that. It's my own responsibility. But he could stay there and start to punish himself because he did not deserve it. Oh, look for what I have done. Look how inferior I am. Look how bad I am. I deserve to suffer. Yes, I'm a pig. He could do that, but he decided to do something different. And why he decided to do something different? Because in his heart, he faced the unconditional love of his father. Whenever we face a fault, we can deal with it in two different ways. We can deal with repentance, or we can do with remorse. The remorse is son of pride. Those who decide for remorse do not allow themselves to restart, to have the right to do once again, to face the responsibility of something. The remorse leads us to punishment and to depression. But the repentance is son of humbleness. And the repentance allows us to go to the path of reconciliation. Whenever we are humble enough to recognize that it's our own fault, so we go to another step. That is the reparation. Whenever we feel that it's our own fault, we want to reparate something. And between the repentance and the reparation, there is another phase that is called expiation. And expiation is not punishment. Expiation is the normal suffering of the consciousness when we are not in tune with the laws of love. This could be for a moment, for an instance, and that could be for centuries. It depends on the amount of the fault. It depends on how deep was something that we did. So, the lost son could stay there, punishing himself, full of remorse, saying to him that he did not deserve something good, but in his heart he looked for his father unconditional love. And pay attention that at that moment he was more aware than his brother. He had a more expanded consciousness than his brother, because his brother was at home and did not realize that the love of his father was unconditional. But when he squandered everything and felt the emptiness of getting disconnected from God, so he felt that his father had everything, even a strong love to accept his choices. So he said to himself, I have lost the right to be called son, but I will come back home and I will be hired as a servant. That's humbleness. That's the movement that takes us back home. That's the movement that leads us to affection. That's the moment that we say to ourselves, I accept to lose the false power. I accept to lose the false sense of control. I surrender. I surrender to trust. I trust that my father will hire me as a servant. What is a servant? A servant is someone that serves life. A servant is someone that is conducted by the act of serving. That means to spread love. So he said, I have lost the right to be called son because I have done something that made me lost my natural dignity. But I worth it. And I will come back and I will be hired as a servant. That's humbleness. That's the inner movement that we need in order to heal ourselves. The moment in our heart that we reconcile with ourselves and we accept that we worth it. And we accept that God's love is unconditional. That we do not need to do nothing in order to receive that love. We only need to face our own responsibilities. That's self-reconciliation. So Jung has a statement that's very important. He said, a tree that has branches that hit the sky cannot do that without roots that do not touch the hell. That means we cannot have light that touch the heaven without the roots that touch the hell. We have a shadow part of ourselves that we need to integrate, that we need to reconcile. The shadow, for the analytic psychology from Jung, is that part of ourselves that we do not love yet, that we do not accept, that we do not recognize, that we do not express. And it's not formed only by those complex, unconscious complex that are things that we have to resolve inside ourselves. It's also made by our abilities, virtues, and possibilities that we still don't recognize. When we face our shadow, we accept that we have something that we have to develop, that we have to increase, and we have to allow to evolve inside ourselves. And we do that when we stop fighting against us. Because no transformation comes from the fight against ourselves. Reconciliation means being peace with us. And being peace means acceptation of ourselves as we are. Light and shadow. Good and evil. Only when we accept ourselves we can transform ourselves. So, the lost son took the path back home. What is to take the path back home? Is to face the same movement that made us apart from God, now back. That means to rebuild the faith, to rebuild the trust, to rebuild the surrender inside of the heart. This is a movement that happens through time. It's not something that happens suddenly. It's not something that we just decide and happens. As I said, faith, it's made by trust, and trust is made by relationship. Relationship means time. So I like very much this expression from our brothers, the Protestants ones. They said that we have to have intimacy with God. Only have intimacy those who have a close relationship with. That means to surrender in our hearts and to decide to have only the control that we can have, that we are able to have, and that we should have in our life. That's what Jesus teaches us. He said to us to allow God to be done His wills, and not to have the control of life. So this path back home is the path of reconciliation with others. Whenever we come closer to affection, we start to reconcile things inside of our heart. And to reconcile is much more than forgiving. The forgiveness is a path to reconciliation, but reconciliation is much more than forgiveness. Forgiveness is about power. When we feel victim, and when we feel that we are someone guilt, we are disputing power. Those who feel they are victim feel they are superior than those that are guilty. But through the lens of reincarnation, who is victim and who is guilty? Those that are victim today were guilty yesterday, will be guilty tomorrow, and are guilty in another relationship. Those that are guilty now were victim, will be victim, are victim in other relationship. So, when this comes to an end, when we give up the dispute of power, and when we accept that the other person is as human as we are, and we allow the other to be human, that means to be shadow and light, to be guilty and victim, to be in construction as we are. So we look for the other with humbleness. When we face humbleness, we can reconcile things, because we can forgive. Forgive is about to give up the burden of suffering that we sustain in our shoulders without reason. To forgive is to accept that we hurt and we can be hurted. We are humans. We are not bigger nor better. This is a dispute of ego trophy. We are just humans. Sometimes we are guilty, sometimes we are apparently victims. We are only humans, connect to the same human movement of get conscious and get aware of our divine nature. To reconcile is more than forgive. Is to give a space of love in our heart for those that belongs. And this is a movement of love. So, we do not exclude people nor situations from our life. We only integrate in a space of love in our hearts. We go away when we accept that everything that happened was right. when we accept that everything that we have lived is the thing that we have lived. So we do not want to change our history. We do not want to change our family. We do not want to change our relationships. We accept that everything was right. We were with the right people at the right time, at the right moment, because everything was an opportunity to grow. And it doesn't matter if we are talking about shadow or light. Everything belongs.
Had a
So-
purpose, is that right?
Huh?
Had a purpose?
Everything had a purpose. And we can give a meaning to that. Because a meaning is not something that is done by others. A meaning is something that we do inside ourselves when we accept that everything is right and when we integrate things that belong to our history. So I will give you an example. I remember that woman that came and said that her love relationships could not go on. And so I asked her, what is your history? And she said, oh, for the last years, I've been working hard to have a relationship, but I couldn't establish a new relationship. And I asked her, why? And she said, oh, I had a marriage and I was betrayed, and then he chose another woman to build another life. And then after that, I tried to make others relationships and I couldn't. And I asked her, when was that? And she said, 20 years ago. So I said to her, oh, I can see that you are very faithful to him. This is a big love of your heart. And she looked at me and she said, oh, that bastard, no. She did not accept that the husband was a big love of her because he was hurt by him. It was her interpretation. So I asked her to tell me a little bit more about their history. And she said, oh, we were married for 15 years. And I asked her, and was it a good years? And she said, yes, I have so many good memories about it. Oh, and is there any fruits of these years? And she said, yes, we had 3 beautiful children. And I asked her, oh, and are them your joy today? And she said, yes, they are my joy of living. So I said to her, let me resume to you and let me see if I understood. You have a marriage for 15 years, a good marriage with good memories, with true big fruits that are your 3 children, and they are the joy of living for you today. And then you tell me that you were betrayed and he chose another woman and made another family, and you interpret this as his fault, and for the last 20 years non-relationship goes on in your life. Am I right? And she said, yes. So I told her, yeah, I understood why you are hurt, because when we leave something that we interpret as a betrayal, so we feel hurt. But what I didn't understood yet is why you let 15 good years of your life only to keep the last moment on the last 20 years. And then I said to her, I can only understand that you do that because this man is so important for you, and it's a so big love that you would like to be with him till today. And then she cried, very touched, and I said to her, you don't need to give up this love. You just need to accept that He has gone. It's His will. You don't need to give up your right to love Him and your right to respect this love that is an important part of your life. This love made something very big inside your heart. And yes, you all have done choices. And it's something that happened. But in order for you to go on, you need to reconcile that inside of your heart. And then she starts to smile. And then she recognized that, yes, now I feel a very big relief. Because now I can recognize that for me to accept to give up this love, it's a very difficult thing. So we do not exclude anything. We just need, in a safety space of our hearts, integrating loves, accepting loves, respecting persons, respecting situations, accepting that everyone is human. This is reconciliation. Reconciliation does not mean that the other accepts something, that we need to get in touch and talk about it. This is another step, if it is possible. Reconciliation means that in my heart, I give a space of love and respect for everything, a space of gratitude for what was good in that relationship. Whenever we do that, we build a connection of love and bridges of love among us, because it's not only between two persons, it's among everything. This is reconciliation. And whenever we do that, we come closer to home. Whenever we feel the affection, whenever we experience affection and really allow ourselves to bridge connections of love, we feel that moment when the lost son came back home and the father gave him new sandals to a soft path, give him new clothes in order to worth it, give him the ring of family to recognize that he belongs, and made a big party for him. Whenever we have a love experience, whenever we allow ourselves to feel that we're worth it, whenever we allow someone to feel that he or she worth it, we live that moment. When we are received by the supreme love, and when we feel the strength, when we feel the force, when we get in touch and in connection with the source of life. That means reconciliation. So that starts when we accept ourselves as humans, when we allow others to be humans, when we integrate loves, not excluding anything nor anyone, when we accept our path, and when we assume our own responsibilities in life, knowing that God loves us unconditionally. And the path back home is the path of trust, of surrender, of connection, true affection, and that allows us to feel what is real. Is that clear? Any questions?
No questions.
No questions at all?
You made the parallel about the horizon and desires and goals. In a more practical sense in life, how do you see the fact? I mean, does, in your interpretation, this should mean that we should not build like goals, because many times we want to do that, right? So how you live with yourself versus your shadow. So you want to become a better person, or you want to achieve something, and you create goals in your own life. And sometimes you keep on moving like that, and this gives you a little bit of a sense of purpose and direction.
Yeah. So
It's
this is
like-
not a problem. So here talking about the goals and the desires that we establish in life. So they are not problems. The point is to recognize that desires are fuel and not goals of life. They allow us to walk. They are not the destiny. So if we use them and direct them through the path back home, they are very good. So we establish goals for ourselves. For example, we can establish the goal to be a better person each day. And if we are self-centered, we establish a goal to be our own reference. So the reference is to be better than me tomorrow. And then better than tomorrow the other day. And not to be better than the other person. When we want to be better than the other person, or better as the other person, we are not self-centered. And we establish a connection and a reference that is not connected to the real thing. So when I want to be better than others, so this is a look for power. This is a look for control. This is something that comes from the ego trophy. But when I want to be better than me, so I'm connected with my own sense of peace, my own sense of completude, you know? I want to fulfill my heart by allowing the better in me to become real. So the goals are necessary. We do not have a life without goals. But we cannot be victims of our desires and lack of reference, you know? Yes.
I wonder how this surrender works in the real life. I mean, how do we do that? How do we put in practice?
Yeah, this is a very good question.
This surrender.
Yeah.
That you're,
How does this surrender becomes real? The surrender becomes real when we get in touch with our heart and we start to feel the guidance from within. That means whenever we establish inner connections with love and God. And how we do that? We do that through prayer, we do that through meditation, we do that through self-knowledge, we do that through self-awareness, we do that through conscious of our body. So, what do I feel in this situation? What I want to do? What does it mean that? When we keep a space of silence inside our heart, we allow the divine presence to express. But our difficult is to make silence inside of us. One day they asked Mother Teresa, how do you pray? And she said, when I want to pray, I just enter my heart, that means my home, my room, my inner room, and I close the door and I just make silence to listen to God. And they said, oh, and what God tells you when you make silence to hear Him? And she said, oh, He doesn't say anything. He just makes silence as well. And from silence to silence, we know everything. This is the surrender. Is to make a deep connection with ourselves that allow a space of silence and to be self-centered in order to hear from within what we have to do. So I'm gonna end by telling you a history about Allan Kardec. Allan Kardec had an amazing job to do, and he was very worried about it, because the Spirit said to him, you have to organize all this information that come from us into a doctrine, and publish it. And he was very interested in doing that. But he was scared because he didn't know. He didn't accept that all that knowledge did not come from him, and he was scared if he could organize everything in such a right way to publish. So he was talking with the Spirit of Truth, which we know that is the very Jesus. And this Spirit told him through a medium, every month I will have a 15 minutes available for you. And then when Kardec heard that, he said, 15 minutes per month? What I would ask in 15 minutes per month to have my doubts solved. So he asked, how would I know if I'm in the right path? How would I know if I'm doing what I have to do? How am I gonna know if I fulfill your expectations? And the answer of the Spirit of Truth was amazing. He said, you will know that you are on the right path by the satisfaction that will come from within. That means whenever you are in peace with what you are doing, and this peace comes from a space of connection with you, an inner strength that comes that you are surrendered and guided. Okay? Thank you very much.
Right, so let's give Andrei 15 to 20 minutes to talk about the Fraternity Without Borders, and then we go back to the past, okay?
Okay.
So do you want to move to
Yes, please. Cadê o negócio de passar? So while he prepared the thing, we still have some books available outside. One book, Healing Self-Healing in Portuguese. One book, Self-Love and Other Potential of the Souls, also in Portuguese. One book, many books, Homosexuality from the Viewpoint of the Immortal Spirit in English. And a book that is called Histories of Life. This book is made by histories from the psychiatric Spiritist hospital in Brazil, André Luiz. And this is the spiritual mentor that came and gave us some information about those patients, their past and their present and their future as well. So it's a very good book to understand the law of action and reaction and the movements of self-healing. So I'm going to tell you right now a little bit about Fraternity Without Borders, this non-profit organization that I take part of it. I'm one of the currently directors of this organization. This organization takes care of over 2,000 orphanage children in Africa, in Mozambique and in Madagascar. So this started when Wagner Moura, a Spiritist leader in Brazil, went to Africa by himself in order to see how he could help there, because he felt in his heart that he should do something for Africa. And then when he got there, he got to know that Mozambique has 1 million orphaned children. 6,000 and 10,000 due to HIV infection and AIDS. So people really died there due to HIV. They live in these small houses like that. They live alone by themselves. Can you believe that Mozambique has 24,000 families conducted by children? but yes, they have it. The HIV infection. The water is dirty. The water is full of salt. So look for the color of the water. They took the water in these very superficial wells and they take home this way. But there are some parts on the border with Zimbabwe where there's no rain for 13 years and all the rivers are dry. And in the dry river they construct a hole, and from this hole comes a water like this, white water, and they use the water like this. It's a very difficult situation. There's no food because they have a lot of land but they don't have water available. So only corn is produced for some families, and this white corn without nutrients, and they produce a thing that is called chima. It's like our angu brasileiro, and it's hard without flavor, without flavor, and they eat with bitter herbs from the field. So can you imagine something without flavor, cold, eat with bitter things? So this is what they eat when they have. When we come to a family and we ask them, have you eaten? And they said, yes, we ate. That means we ate a little piece of shima 2-3 days ago. And that's what they have. Some of them only eat leaves from the trees. And that's a very hard situation. This grandma was giving nuts to these children that came down from the tree. And these nuts are small ones. And when they opened, there's only pieces of nuts inside of it. And many families only eat that. Look for the dog. Can we turn down the light? So here you can see the school, but I used to say that this is a private school. It is not, because there's no private school there, but the public school is that. The children are educated under the shadow of a tree. And they learn to write using their own fingers on the ground, on the sand. So I'm gonna show you Linda and Alegria. This video is in Portuguese, but this video tells the history of Linda and Alegria. So what they are telling is that these two girls lost their parents and they don't know what this is. Make them pass away. The brother went out to South Africa because the men used to go to South Africa to try the life on the mines of diamonds, and they were left alone.
Mas eles não têm mãe, não têm pai, não têm tia. Mana mfuna kukumu, mana muunza kuona wambia.
Nashukuru kanta watakuzanta, kutakuitaka.
Ela diz que vai fazer trabalho na machamba para conseguir alimentar-se. O cola malemo nesse.
Não faz escolher, parece falta.
Ele diz que nos dias que vai para a machamba, falta a escola para ganhar 50 meticais de cada. Lá naí chakula.
Não, uma flor de vida.
Aqui em casa só temos arroz, feijão e sal. Não come o que ele punga lá na mão.
Ai, a creche.
essa comida que nós temos aqui fomos dados pela creche. Não como que custa da creche nos coloca.
Eu acho que eu tenho.
Quando a gente não come a comida da creche, temos que ir a uma chamba fazer um trabalho para podermos ganhar simplesmente castigo. Uma quando eu olho no ampulado, o após diz que o irmão mais velho está na casa e cuida dela, nem liga, não diz nada, nem manda comida para eles. Papai, a filha, o gato.
Não, o gato.
Tu aí.
Não sei, então.
Diz que o pai e a mãe morreram quando ele era pequenino e não sabe o motivo da doença que levou à morte dos pais. Os pais também morreram, deixaram gado e cabritos, mas o gado, o filho, os avós levaram. Aqui o que eles têm são cabritos. Tem muitos ainda estão na tua?
11.
Aqui elas duas contam com 11 cabritos, mas esses 11 cabritos que ela tem não tem corda. Quando os cabritos invadem a machamba de donos, elas são submessas a capinar nas machambas de donos pela queda dos cabritos feitos. Se houvesse uns titis que quisessem nos ajudar, podiam construir uma casa para nós, porque quando a ventania chove, as achapas abanam, a chuva entra e elas têm medo.
So, when Wagner got to know these children, he came back to Brazil and he started this project, Fraternity Without Borders, that build learning centers on the village, on the small village, where these children spent the half of the day, the other half they are at school, and they receive food, hygiene, cultural projects, and education. So nowadays we have been working in Mozambique for 7 years. We have 23 learning centers built in Mozambique and 2 in Madagascar, and 12,000 orphanage children assisted in a daily basis in these learning centers. In Madagascar the situation is even worse than in Mozambique, because in Madagascar they do not have water available, nor even to build wells, because there's no water on the soil, and they have to buy from far lands. It's a very difficult situation. They do not have any source of money, and they do not have the cultural that Mozambique has to give them strength to support this difficulties in life. So we have facing much more difficult in Madagascar than in Mozambique. I will show you Madagascar. We have started to work in Madagascar in February this year.
Madagascar, na África. O sul da ilha vive uma das maiores secas já registradas em todo o mundo. Uma das maiores crises humanitárias do planeta.
Muita fome, muita desnutrição, muita sujeira, não tem água. A água aqui é artigo de luxo.
Iniciamos o trabalho em fevereiro. Abrimos um centro de acolhimento e as crianças foram chegando, cada dia mais. Organizamos a primeira caravana e sentimos perto do povo malgache a imensa necessidade.
Hoje, no 4º dia, estamos chegando à sede da fraternidade, em Bordê, E aqui já são 2 aldeias, 2 vilagens que já estão aguardando para entrar no lugar.
As crianças tomam banho só quando chove. Crescem dentro da mesma roupinha. Estimamos que 90% sofrem de desnutrição crônica ou aguda. E as doenças multiplicam-se sem o devido amparo médico.
As carências aqui são diferentes e às vezes maior do que a gente já tem visto em outras unidades.
Durante a primeira caravana, intensificamos a ajuda humanitária. Alimento, consultas médicas, orientação à higiene, banho, roupinhas. Levamos todo o amor dos padrinhos e apoiadores. Precisamos ir além. São milhares de crianças, adultos, famílias inteiras vivendo na extrema miséria. Ajude-nos a acolher as famílias de Madagascar. Nenhuma seca pode ser maior do que a fraternidade no coração humano.
So all this
Estamos na região.
all this project is maintained by sponsorship. So can you imagine that with only 25 Canadian dollars you can change the life of a child in Mozambique or in Madagascar? Only 25. It seems for us little or nothing, but for them makes all the difference, because it's much more than give food for a child. It's to give a future, it's to give an opportunity, it's to give a family, it's to give a space where these children can be integrated in society and belongs to something much bigger. So I have been working this organization for 3 years and a half. I go at least 2 or 3 times a year to Mozambique in our caravans of health. There I'm the director. Every person is welcome to join us in these caravans. Just need to be sponsorship of the fraternity, pay all your costs, and have the goodwill to serve in everything that is needed. Everyone is welcome. So you can subscribe through our website fraternitywithoutborders.org or fraternidadesemfronteiras.org.br, and then you can sponsor the project, and you can also subscribe to a caravan. There's 2 specific sites on our website where you can subscribe for that. So I invite all of you to join us in this family of Love Without Borders, because this is a very serious project. None of us receive any money from the organization. We spend money. It's very different. Only the people that are hired there in Mozambique and those that work on our office in Brazil are hired, but the vast majority of us, we are volunteers. And we do that because this is our ideal. This is something that we want to live. The ideal of this organization is to live the fraternity and to understand that we are only one family, and that we are one heart and one family only, to build bridges of affection and connection. So this is a path back home for all of us. These people, these African people from all countries, they are our family. They belong. They are part of our history, and especially our country in Brazil was built by their sacrifice, by their exploration. So we have built our country with tears, with blood, with sacrifice of these people, and we have a debt with them, a spiritual debt. And nowadays this project allows us to have an opportunity to love and to be loved by them, because they are full of love. So we build bridges that heal them and heal us as well. So I invite you all to join us and be part of this family, because when a new sponsors come, another children come to this project. So you are very welcome. You can join us through the website. For those that are with us through internet, you can access our website fraternitywithoutborders.org or fraternidadesemfronteiras.org.br. So you have this website on the comments and you can access it. For you that are here with me, if you wanna join us and be part of it, of course you can subscribe through our website as well. But if you wanna do today, you can just write your name, your telephone number, and your email. Name, telephone number, and email, and you can give me, and you will be a new sponsor. The office will contact you tomorrow, and you are very welcome to be part of this group. You can pay your donation through credit card, through PayPal on our website, through bank donation in Brazil, Banco do Brasil, Itaú, Bradesco, or you can ask boleto. I don't know. Yeah. So if you wanna pay in dollar, you have to subscribe by our English site, fraternitywithoutborders.org. If you wanna pay in real, you subscribe through our Brazilian, our Portuguese website. Okay? If you wanna donate something, welcome as well. If you wanna pay, for example, a year in cash with me, you can also do it. Many people did that in United States. I've been there the 2 last weeks. So if you wanna pay 6 months, 1 month, 2 months, or 1 year, you are welcome to do that, and you can do it with me. Just let me know, okay? Thank you very much for these 2 days. It was a pleasure to be here with you. I beg your pardon for my many mistakes in English, but I did my best in order to speak properly. And I thank you, the TSS, for this amazing opportunity to share and to join you in this effort for search of inner peace. So may God continue blessing all of you, and may all of us continue together in this path back home. Thank you very much.
Alright, so I want to thank everyone who's watching us through the internet. We're gonna now disconnect and get prepared here for the passes, okay? I want to ask everybody to keep silent, prepared for the passes now.
To reuse everything.